This one's wife. Give it time, and people start to see. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. One of the most frustrating things for the victim of a narcissist is the fact that other people may not actually see what's going on. Part of this is because the narcissist tends to focus their devaluing behaviour on the intimate partner primary source, and this often takes place behind closed doors. In effect, there are no witnesses. Instances where the facade fractures tends to be explained away. Maybe they were tired, they'd had a bad day at work. But where you attempt to explain to somebody else the way this individual is behaving, it often appears totally unbelievable to the ears of the person that you're talking to. They really can't comprehend that someone could behave this way, because most people aren't well versed in understanding what narcissism is. And thus what can often happen is that the devalued intimate partner primary source spends their time listing all of the bad behaviour of the narcissist, but they are come across as being obsessive, nitpicking, that they appear to be hysterical, that they appear to be the crazy one, particularly when the narcissist often presents as cool, calm and collected. The victim, frazzled, worn down, seems to be the one that's actually making things up, that is perhaps reading too much into it, that they are the one that is making a mountain out of a molehill. And they end up particularly frustrated as they wonder, why will nobody believe me in relation to the way that this person is treating me? Some of you have experienced that in your personal lives. Some of you may also have experienced a degree of frustration in relation to trying to get people to understand the way that this one's wife behaves. As you know, I ascertained very early on, as a consequence of my own personal interaction with her, what she was, but for the purposes of educating people, I turned to the masses of evidence that demonstrate what she is and continues to be demonstrated on a day-to-day basis. I know that many of you have often sought to tell other people, she's a narcissist and here's why, and there are people who won't accept it. I know that there are many of you that have been involved in battles on Twitter, X, where you've sought to demonstrate to those of the sugary persuasion, look, she's a narcissist, look at this behaviour, look at that behaviour. Do you not see it? And of course, given the fact that they're not particularly intelligent, given the fact that they're invested in this one's wife, they explain her behaviour away by basically blaming you, saying that you have an obsession in relation to somebody that you don't know, that you're being a racist, that you should leave her alone. The victim of a narcissist, however, has one huge advantage, and it's called the passage of time. It's similar in effect to the concept of give the narcissist enough rope and they'll hang themselves. In that, initially, let's look at this one's wife and the uncovering of what she is. Many people watched the engagement interview, and there were some who thought, something's not quite right here, she might be a wrong 'un. But many people would be likely to explain that away by saying she was nervous, she was trying to put on a particular front in order to look impressive, she wasn't used to being interviewed in this way, and in other instances, she was just being American. And those of us that knew what we were watching, many others explained it away. Her behaviour with her father at the wedding, again, was an indicator of her narcissism, but others might say, well, she did the right thing, he behaved atrociously with regard to the paparazzi, she was right to disinvite him. Others, with regard to her pernickety behaviour surrounding the Givenchy dress, slapping away the man's hand as she emerged from the car, wanting the diffusers and the tiara, etc. Others would say, well, people turn into bridezilla, don't they? It's a wedding, they get stressed, they want it just so it's understandable that she behaved that way. Then Megxit came along eventually, and individuals would say, well, you know, it's no wonder she left the country. Look at the way that the press treated her. You know, when Harry, he lost his mother in effect to the behaviour of the paparazzi. and therefore it's understandable he would want to shield his wife and protect his wife and child and move to another country. Then the Oprah interview, the allegations of not being helped when she was suicidal. There were those that would say, well, that has plausibility, you know, that it's a cold institution, that she was expected to fit in with it and she struggled to do so. Again, maybe her Americanism didn't quite sit. The allegations that the people speculated about Archie's skin colour, labelling them as the royal racists, people might say, well, you know, you never know. It's a very white family. That could have been said. And thus at the time, whilst there was a growing body of individuals that could see all of these behaviours were indicative of her narcissism and were generated by her narcissism, there was still a considerable number of people at 2021 who were still giving her the benefit of the doubt. But here we are, 3 years on from Oprah, 6 years on from when they had become engaged, 7 or so years from when they had met. That provides you with a huge amount of material and information. And what that does is it creates a pattern of behaviour. In the early stages of a relationship, you might say, oh, he did this and he did that, and the other person says, oh, it's just quirks, idiosyncrasies, don't worry about it, you know, you're new to all of this thing, it's a new relationship, it'll all iron out. But when you have years worth of these indicators, years worth of evidence, there's a pattern and it paints a picture. Just take for example, and this is far from an exhaustive list, in the years that have passed, we have seen the incessant need for her to assert control from PR puff pieces. The being photographed repeatedly by Backgrid doing the most mundane of things. The curious case of the pregnancy. All of the allegations that have drifted around in relation to the suggestion that a moon bump was used. The near-catastrophic car chase, which clearly was not. The smearing of other individuals through Spare. The repeated necessity of seeking attention, whether it be staring down the camera lens, always finding the camera, appearing in Vanity Fair, The Cut, Time magazine. The bullying allegations against her, the high staff turnover. The allegations contained in Tom Bower's Revenge, none of which have ever been actioned by way of her suing. The loss of the Spotify contract, Netflix said to be losing interest. The lack of involvement with her family in particular, her seriously ill father, the Invisi-Kids, the Yacht Girl rumours, the lies that were told about the Princess of Wales, the way that she sought to take over the Invictus Games, both in The Hague and Dusseldorf, for instance, marching with the troops, the queries about the expenditure through Archwell, the Navy SEAL appearances where while someone was speaking she broke off and approached the crowd. Those are just some off the top of my head. You'll be able to think of many, many others. And those of you that perhaps have become frustrated by people's lack of ability to understand what she is, you can, in effect, take a degree of solace from the fact that there is so much evidence that now builds up that those floating voters, if you will, are now starting to see it. It will always be the case that the hardcore supporters, the rump of shuggers, will never be able to see it. They're cerebrally challenged. They're not capable of balancing the evidence. But more and more people have started to see the way by which she has behaved. That once upon a time, they perhaps might dismiss the behaviour, as I mentioned, as a consequence of nerves, or being American, or wanting everything just so at the wedding. But as it happens with the narcissist, there are too many instances and examples, too many occasions where this happens, too many instances where you see the behaviour, and it's just the same with this one's wife. So as I explain to anybody that's dealing with a narcissist and they want to try and persuade other people as to what they're dealing with, you have to wait for the right time with regard to that person being more susceptible to the discussion, more open to it, and there being a greater body of evidence. I would also say to those of you that become frustrated by people's failure to recognise her as to what she really is, that there is more and more evidence building up, and the more that time passes, the more there is this pattern of behaviour. And you can start to see it in the commentary in newspapers, the things that are written about her, more and more people are realizing precisely what she is. And that's only going to take her to one particular place. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.